Hello and welcome back. In this lecture, you're going to understand how to externalize the configuration to an YAML file, how to migrate between the environments, and how to add secure properties to your Mule applications. So let us get started. Why externalization? Firstly, let's assume that you have two environments like dev environment, and this is a server in dev environment, and assume that this box represents a server in production environment. Now, what you have done is you have created a Mule application and exported it to a jar. In the jar, you have your Mule application, which is connecting to a database. So I have created this application, which is having logic to connect to databases. Fine. Here, the problem is I have hard coded in global.xml. If you see, I have hard coded the username, password, host, database name, etc. So now let me tell you the problem. Let's assume that I have exported this application as a jar. So I have a jar file. Assume that it is a.jar. Now, while writing my code, I have written my logic so that the application will be connected to dev database. For development environment, I have a dev database, and for production, I have a production database. When I'm writing as a developer, I have written my username, password, hard coded to connect to this dev database. So that's fine. If I deploy my jar on a dev server, that's fine. My application will connect to dev database. But what if everything is working fine? I want to migrate the same jar to production environment. Will I be able to do so? If I do so, the application which is deployed in production environment also will connect to the same database because I have hard coded the credentials. If you see, I have hard coded the credentials of the database. So migrating between the environments will become difficult. So what is the solution? The solution is don't hard code your credentials within your XML file. The best practice is to externalize this configuration to a YAML file. See what I have done in my SRC main resources, that means in class path. Just to save some time, I have already written db-dev.yaml. See the convention which I am following. I can actually write, okay, I'll rename this. The best practice is I'll rename it as app-dev.yaml, and I will rename this one also as app-prod.yaml. So app-dev.yaml contains the credentials to connect to local database. See, the host is localhost. And for production, I have a separate server on my remote machine. app-prod.yaml contains the host name, username, password to a remote database. I have my own remote database, and this is the database name, username, and I know the password. So if I just show you the database, this is the database name, and here also there is a table called as product table in this database. Fine. I have one remote database which I want to use for production and one dev database on my local machine. So when I deploy this jar to dev machine, it should connect to dev database. And when I deploy the same jar to this machine, it should connect to production database. So what I have done is I have created two YAML files. And if you see the keys, db host, db username, password, etc., right? So while configuring the connector, instead of hard coding the host name, I will have to write a placeholder dollar curly brackets db dot host. Hey, I'm using dot. Why? Actually, in YAML file, this is the syntax. DB colon I used, and every line is having 2 spaces as the delimiter. Okay. So whenever you want to refer to this property, DB dot, you have to use a dot wherever you have used nested line. db.host, db.username, db.password, etc. Like that I can use. So I'll write here username dollar db dot and password. Where is password? Yeah, here. Dollar password, and here dollar db dot name. So I have written placeholders. Fine. So if you see global elements, and if I edit it here, you can see that the host name, username, password, or password database name are replaced with placeholders. Now I have to tell where to find the properties for this placeholders. What I have to do is I have to click on create. I have to configure a global element called as configuration properties. And right now I will give the name of app-dev.yaml. Fine. So by configuring this global element configuration properties, I'm telling, hey, you can find any configuration properties inside this YAML file. Fine. Now I'll go to database config and click on test connection. Let us see if connection is successful. Yes. Fine. So now let me do the deployment of this application and see if it is able to connect or not. I'll just run it. It is redeploying. So once it starts, let me try to check. I'll have to give a request to localhost 8081/products. Yeah, I'll give a request once it starts. Let us see if it is starting successfully or not. Deployed. Fine. Now, let me give a request. Hey, I'm getting the products. So I got 6 products as per my local database. Fine. Now, actually, again, if I export this also as a jar file, don't you think that I have hard coded the name of the file, db-app-dev? So it will always read from this app-dev only, right? Then what if I have exported this application as a jar file? Same problem. The jar file is containing the logic to point to app-dev. How it will point to prod? So what you have to do is, again, instead of hard coding app-dev, or env I can use. So again, I have given a placeholder. I am not telling exactly whether to load from app-dev or app-prod. Again, I gave a placeholder. So during runtime, I have to give the value of this my env. How to pass the value of my env during runtime? Actually, if you are running a standalone server, I hope you remember how to run a standalone server. You will be executing mule.bat. Mule.bat. Yes. So while starting mule.bat, if you want to pass any environment variables, what you could have done is at the command line, you can pass -m, -d. I want to pass my env. My env is equals to dev. So like that, my env is the environment variable, and this is the syntax -m, -d, my env equals to dev. So while starting this server itself, I would have started by passing this environment variable. Then when this jar is getting deployed here, it will pick the value of my env as dev. So it will connect to app-dev.yaml. And suppose if this is a production server, while starting it, I'll execute mule.bat -m, -d, my env is equals to prod. So for this machine, for this server, my env is prod. So if I deploy the same jar here, it will connect, it will read the configuration from app dash prod.yaml and connect to this database. That's fine. So like that. But right now, I told you how to pass environment variables if you are starting a standalone Mule runtime. But how to pass the same when you're running through Studio? What you have to do is right click on the project, run as. Till now, we are selecting run as Mule application. Now, I will select Mule application configure and inside arguments. Here, if you see, there are VM arguments here. Here, you can see already there are a lot of -m options. Now, I'll pass -m, -d, my env is equals to dev, apply, and then run. Now, it will run using that env value. So let us see if it gets started. Okay, deployed, and let me give a request. Yes, I got 6 products as per my local database. Now, I want to deploy the same application and connect to production. So first of all, let me test the credentials. Actually, let me test the database connection. If I click on test connection, hey, it's giving me an error message. What is it saying? Couldn't find the configuration property value for key my env. See, the value of my env I'm passing at runtime during deployment. But I didn't deploy, I'm testing connection, right? So the value of my env is not known. Actually, the best practice to be followed is whenever you are externalizing your configuration, whenever you are using something like my env like this, you have to give a default value. How? What I can do is I can click on create under connections. I'll search for, I have to select and give the global property my env, and default value I want to give as dev. Fine. Now let me test the connection. Yes, successful. So the default value will be whatever I gave. Now what I want to do is I want to override during deployment. I want to give the value of my env as prod. Let's assume that I'm deploying to production. So what I can do is while running the Mule application, here if I give my env as prod, whatever you are passing at runtime will override whatever you are given in your YAML file. Let me run and check if the deployment will be successful now. Deployed. Fine. Now let me test the connection. Let me test and give a request to /products. It is saying could not get connection. Access denied. Okay, access is denied. Okay, maybe in my remote database, maybe I have to give permissions. That's okay. But you can understand that it is connecting to this database. Maybe I have to give the correct credentials, correct password, etc., or allow permissions for my local machine. That's okay, but I want you to understand that I should, it is trying to connect to this credentials, using this credentials, whatever I gave inside this YAML file, app-prod. Fine. So that's about how to externalize. But now there is a problem. Actually, you can see that you can see my password. That's the biggest problem, right? So it is not a good practice to configure secured values like this, like passwords. I don't want to configure the plain values. I might want to encrypt the password and configure the encrypted value. So how to actually encrypt your secure properties? Password is secure property. I want to encrypt it. How? Let me tell you. I will just go to Google. And search for secure properties in Mule 4. It will take me to the documentation. I'll go to the documentation page. Actually, Mulesoft provides us a tool for encrypting the passwords. I'm going to show you through documentation how to use that properties file. Very simple. Let me tell you. I'm taking you to the documentation page. Yes. Here, if you go through the documentation, let me tell you, there is a jar file called as secure properties tool jar. Okay, I downloaded it. I'll cut these things and paste it here. Now, I have the jar file. In the documentation, they have clearly documented how to use a jar file for encrypting text. Okay, here is the example. Here is a syntax to use it. Java space -cp and some class name, etc. Right? So what I will do is I'll copy this. I'll copy this command and I'll explain you clearly. Okay. So method. Actually, what is the method? Here you can see method. They have given an example string. If you want to encrypt a single string, then the method has to be string. So I'll copy this command and pass one by one. The method I want to pass as string. What operation I want to do? Do I want to encrypt or decrypt? I want to encrypt. Okay. Algorithm. There are multiple algorithms. I'll show you what all algorithms are supported. I want to use an algorithm called as Blowfish. So algorithm Blowfish. Then mode. They have given an example of CBC mode. CBC. And key. I can give any key. For example, if I give a key, I'll give, let us say, Mulesoft. And value, what I want. I will write secret. Okay, this is my actual string which I want to encrypt. Normally, while encrypting, you need a key for encrypting. This is a key. I can give my random key. Okay. So let me execute this command. I'll go to the folder where I have this jar file. I'll open CMD. Then paste it. Let us see. Hey, I got this value. This is the encrypted value for this string and using this key. Now, let me decrypt it here. I will write decrypt. Okay. What is it saying? Okay. Sorry, I forgot. This is the actual string, right? I have to give the string that should be decrypted. Yep. Did I get the decrypted value? Secret? Yes. So you understood that this is the command which I can use. I am actually executing the jar file by passing these arguments. So you understood how to encrypt a single string, but how to encrypt a file, entire file, how to encrypt it. Let us see. Here again, there is a configuration on how to encrypt the file. I'll copy this and I'll explain you. Fine. There's a syntax which they have given according to documentation. Okay. Fine. So I will actually configure this. So what I want is, I have this db-dev.yaml. I'll copy it into the same folder where I have this secure properties tool. What I want is, I want all the key value pairs, all the values in this YAML file to be encrypted. So I want to encrypt all the values in a YAML file. How to do? So method is, in this case, I have to use file. Let me check the documentation once again. Here, I gave file encrypt again. Operation is encrypt. Algorithm is, again, I'll use same blowfish algorithm. Mode is CBC. And let us say I want to use the same key, my random key. The input file is app-dev.yaml, and the output file is app-secure-dev.yaml. So I want this to be the output file. So let me execute this command. I'll clear the console. Okay. Hey, let us see the file. Yeah, you can see that app-secure-dev is generated. Okay, it contains all the encrypted values. Good. So let me try to test this. Copy and paste it here. Secure file also I pasted. Now, what I want is, I don't want host to be encrypted. Right? To encrypt host. I don't want database name also to be encrypted. I don't want, okay, let the username and password be encrypted. Fine. Now, I have two files, app-dev, app-secure-dev. Similarly, maybe I have to write app-secure-prod.yaml as well. Okay. So now, assume that I have written app-secure-prod also. To save some time, I am not writing it. Okay. Now, in app-dev, what I want is, I don't want to give username and password. So I have some secure files, secure properties like username and password. I have some unsecure properties like host and name. Now, how to tell read these secure properties from this file? What I have to do is, in globals, I have to configure a global secure. Oh, I'm not able to see anything like secure. Actually, secure properties module is not present in any point studio. Actually, if you don't have any particular module in a studio, you can download it from any point Exchange. So what you can do, you can click on search in Exchange, and you can search in Exchange with secure. So it will show, yes, you can see Mule secure configuration properties. I will add it. So what we are adding this Mule secure configuration properties module into our Anypoint Studio. So it will download this module from Exchange and add it to my project. Let us wait. Yes. You can see secure properties is added. Actually, there are no components inside it, only global element. So I'll click on global element. Now I will click on create secure configuration properties. Here I have to give the file name app-secure dash. Again, I can give placeholder $my-env.yaml. And what is the key I used for encryption? What is the key I used? My random key. This is the one, right? My random key. And file level encryption. Yes, true. And algorithm is blowfish. Mode is CBC. Same thing, whatever I used. That's all. So these are I'm telling to read from the secure configuration properties file. And then, okay, so we have configured secure properties configuration like this. I told what is a key, file level encryption is true, all this, right? So now, in database configuration, what I have to do is wherever I want to say that you have to encrypt, you have to use a prefix secure : and password also I have to use secure : Now let me test. Hey, I'm getting an error. What is it saying? Illegal character at. Okay. Secure : I have used, and let me remove this default file level encryption. Now let me test the connection. Hey, successful. Okay. If the entire key and value have been encrypted, then only I have to use file level encryption. Okay. So that was a problem. So that's the way you can actually secure your properties. Remember, whenever you are having a secure properties file where your properties values are actually encrypted, what you have to do, you have to configure the secure properties config. And whenever you're referencing to a property which should be decrypted, you have to use this prefix secure : That's it. So now you know how to externalize a configuration and also how to decrypt. Okay, see you in next video. What you can do is actually you have to complete all these documents from the day 9. Okay, see you next video.